everybody. Welcome. Did I get everyone's name right? I did, and everyone's in the right spot. Perfect. How are you guys doing? This is what Keebcast episode is this, Chase? I don't even know.
This should be 26 or 27.
Jeez.
26 sounds right.
It's been a while. Wait, is the volume's not good, guys? Uh-oh. Oh, is it because I had everything muted? Is that what it was? Chase, did you want to roll us in?
Yes. Okay, guys. So this week, as were we muted just a second ago when you were trying to introduce us a little bit?
No.
Okay, so this is okay. Well, this week we have George with us from Keycult, and I guess I'll let George kind of explain to you guys who he is with Keycult, and because I don't think I need to explain what Keycult is or who Keycult is, but I'll let George kind of tell you guys who he is.
So for those of you who don't know, just in case Keycult is a manufacturer and seller of keyboards, of mostly aluminum keyboards, and I am half of that company. The other half is a well-known community member called the Ride on the Bay. And yeah, that's a good intro.
I think so. I think that was
Yes.
good. By the way, chat, if you guys point out today that George, his audio is not synced, all right? Because you guys, someone's gonna say it today. I know it. We know. We tried to fix it beforehand. We can't fix it. I don't know why it is. All right. So George is also Keycult. Actually, is also really not only into keyboards, but they're into something else, being coffee. That's another big part of the company. At least I find it is lately, anyways. George, yeah, thanks, guys. I already know his audio's unsynced. Thank you, guys. But yeah, that's another big part of Keycult. We just also saw, and actually was lucky enough to win one as well, the Keycult number 265 raffles that happened a little while ago, which was interesting because they were in stock, which was an interesting move on your guys' part.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's more all the stuff that we're making ourselves and the machine is running right now, a couple hundred feet that way, we are going to be selling in stock. It's a little bit it was born out of a necessity to show people that we could manufacture high quality and to our standards ourselves. And then as we've done it, it has sort of become a nice quality of life thing where in-stock sales are just less stressful because we don't have to worry about stock. Things can be B stock, things can be A stock, and we don't have to make quotas, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, which is awesome. And on top of that too, to get a product that you pay for quicker, I think on the customer's end of things just feels nicer, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure it's nice not to have to wait 6 to 7 months for your stuff, which is the norm in the
Yes.
world.
Yes. I know even Space Cables has been working on some in-stock stuff too, which is awesome. So I'd like to see that become the norm more so in the community going forward. But
I will say that, like, while I understand your sentiment, I do think that that's like a maybe a slight unreasonable standard because it's like the capital requirements to in stock is big, and even like what we consider to be big keyboard vendors are still small companies, and like it's hard for them to, you know, put down hundreds of thousands of dollars and be like, well, I can just sit on this money for 6 months.
We even talked about that a little bit today during my morning stream too, because we've been getting a lot of interesting comments about why aren't vendors even carrying simple things like desk mats in stock, you know, more than just even a few hundred. And we talked about it this morning, saying that, well, guys, this is not just about buying it. It's also, where are you putting all of that? And then how are you making sure of inventory? How are you shipping them out? Like, how are you managing your SKUs? So there is like a large overhead that's not just product in warehouse type thing and ship out. So there is more to it. And, you know, you and Space Cables definitely probably have more know-how and knowledge about that than me, for sure. I don't do any of that stuff. I ship out a keyboard once in a blue moon to a customer. That's about it.
I think Space probably ships out more than we do, but yeah, there's a lot. Even like we have a very limited SKU, like catalog, and it takes a lot of coordination and a lot of effort to fulfill.
Yeah, for sure. But some questions for you, George. I know we usually dive into like more personal things. I'm sure you've probably been asked this, but I'd love to know because I don't think I've caught this. How did you get into keyboards?
Zach, essentially.
Oh.
I was not super into keyboards before we started Keycult. I have always been more of the like my top of the line keyboard was like a Leopold before Zach gifted me a mechanical keyboard that he like hand soldered. It was I forget what it was. And then pretty much ever since then, we sold that keyboard to start the company, and ever since then, I've pretty much only used Keycults. So I've learned a lot, and it's been really, really great. And I'm definitely like night and day in what I know in terms of keyboard stuff. But when we first started the company, I was definitely more of like the kind of the marketing side of things, the financial side of things, the customer relations side of things, all that stuff. And I've now morphed into a sort of operations officer. But like to answer your question, like how did I get into keyboards? Zach gifted me my first sort of high-end mechanical keyboard that he hand soldered for my birthday. Very great birthday gift. And then one day he came up to me and was like, "Hey, I have this idea for a keyboard company. Do you want to jump on the boat?" And I said, "Sure, let's do it." So that's sort of my very brief introduction into mechanical keyboards.
Yeah.
How long ago was that? How long has Keycult been pumping out keyboards now?
2 years. I think our first run was about 2 years ago.
Okay.
So, you know, we're an ancient company.
Ancient. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And would you say that you guys, like, I mean, obviously there's stuff that you guys have learned from day one to day two, but what would you say is the biggest, I guess, strive or step that you guys have taken since day one of Keycult versus now?
Oh man, Keycult is such a different company than what we had envisioned it to
Really?
be. Like, yeah, like we are nothing like the company. We write a lot of stuff down, and like we were looking through sort of our projections and our assumptions when we first started the company, and like they were just like really wrong. And they were like we were really concerned back then of like if we like what was like essentially like are we going to get people bored with our product if we sell like more than like 80 of them? Back then we were just like back then we were Zach was coming in from when the hobby was like a really, really small hobby, and like group buys were for like 10 to 20 boards and stuff like that. So we were like, can the hobby sustain us selling like 80 keyboards a month, like without us like having a bunch of stock constantly not moving in our shelves? And like we've of course like ever since then like our primary mission right now is like, okay, we need to make more stuff because we want more people to get our stuff. So it's just like really funny, like we've iterated so much on just the company. So it's been a huge learning experience because it's like, A, I was really unfamiliar with the hobby, and B, I think that even if I was familiar with the hobby, I could have never predicted sort of the growth that it has in comparison to like if you're a small business working in this niche, like this is like explosive growth, and it's been really surprising, and I don't think anyone predicted it.
And I see some comments.
Like
oh, sorry,
crazy.
go on, Reagan. Go on, sorry.
No, this year it's gone crazy. Or actually like 2020, pretty much all of quarantine has boosted the number of people in the community.
Yeah.
And what's funny too is I see some people saying, you know, never enough Keycults, but I mean, you're not wrong. Like probably 2 years ago, I wasn't in the hobby 2 years ago. I had some mechanical keyboards that were, you know, off the shelf or, you know, things like that. But you know, to think of 80 now, considering the growth of the hobby, is crazy.
Yeah.
So, George, what were you doing before Keycult then? If Keycult's been going for 2 years now.
So I had a kind of a weird job, and whenever people ask me about it, I just say that I was in sales. So
Here we go.
I sold small private aircraft to people who needed small private aircraft.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of, people would be surprised how analogous it is to the high-end mechanical keyboard market, and I think that like also a lot of things that sort of inform us as a company come from Zach's experience with his previous employer and my experience with my previous employer, which was that we were both in very high touch jobs where people like appreciated things going through a person and seeming like they went through a person rather than them being like really sterile and like quote unquote professional, which I feel like is a lot of people's inclination when they're starting like a product company. They're like, what's the most successful product company that you could think of? Go ahead. Like, throw out a name. What's the most successful product company that
Apple.
you can think of?
Yeah.
Apple by far.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like everyone tries to be Apple, which is like Apple has definitely hit the niche of like beautiful, simple, sterile, like and I don't mean sterile in like a negative way. Like like when you get your iPhone, like you can like it looks and feels like it hasn't been touched by mortal hands ever in its life.
Yeah, that's not wrong. That's very much true. Yeah.
So our approach has been kind of the opposite of that. Like we want people to understand that that their product is touched by people that are making it, and whether that's our factory in China or whether it's us, like it always gets filtered through the very human sort of us. And we want people to know that, which is why like our labels are handwritten and why our QC cards are also handwritten, and why our boxes are stamped instead of printed, because we want people to, when they open up their box, it sort of reflects the product that's inside and what the journey of the product was.
Yeah.
That really explains and kind of brings together that collaboration you guys just finished up with Grove Made as well. A company that feels so handmade and so to order, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Really explain that like explanation of what you guys are going for really explains how that kind of fits together. Huh.
Yeah. And GroveMate is a company that we like actually, their founder is like friends of ours, and we actually spoke with them or with him about getting a CNC machine and what the challenges of like making your own stuff are and stuff like that, because like we didn't go into this sort of new phase in our company very lately, and we are very much the type of people that want to speak with as many people as possible to give them an opportunity to talk us out of it. And he was one of those people who didn't successfully talk us out of it.
Well, and even the whole, I'm a big fan of, handmade wood and stuff like that. Like the whole, here's how we finish it. I like products like Carved makes a lot of really cool things. One of one cases that are made of burls and resin and stuff like that. So I'm very much into that. So that whole collab like really would just made me go, wow, it's really cool. Because it's something that I like. And you are right with the whole Apple being sterile versus something like Keycult, where you can definitely feel like someone's actually took some pride and made this product for you. Because I feel like a lot of companies now that are doing more of that kind of approach to things, they do include things like handmade notes to show that a human actually worked on this, not just a machine, which I think goes a long way, because you get a sense of, wow, this means a lot more to me now because someone took this much pride into it. An Apple, but like for example, an Apple product, as much as I love my phone, I'm not going, if the phone drops, I'm not going to be sad about it. I'll just go buy a new one. The Keycult drops, I'll probably be sad.
For what it's worth, like Apple, a lot goes into your phone. And like,
Totally,
and as someone who's like currently battling the demons of like anodizing and like things fitting together correctly, like I can appreciate just how much effort goes into a product like Apple's. And like, I think that that's sort of I think that like Apple has done it so well that like it's like quality is sort of an afterthought with them. Like you expect such high standards from them that like you don't think about it's sort of like that. It's the, I think that like you need to have that level of like notoriety for just like having an outstanding product to just sort of be able to be like, yeah, the fact that our product is outstanding is just like not really part of like
it's not what we're going for this year. It's already a thing.
Yeah. And to be somebody like Apple too, who releases something every year, and the headlining features of the product don't really matter because people are going to buy it just for the experience of interacting with that product no matter what. So they're definitely on another level than any other consumer product company right now.
And actually,
Yeah.
someone made a good point in chat too. They said they also liked how you can watch a Keycult get machined on their Discord, which has been a very fascinating thing.
Yeah, I'm glad some people are enjoying that. So for those of you who don't know, our CNC machine has a Discord user, and it oftentimes, I actually need to boot it up. I forgot. It oftentimes streams on our Discord channel, sort of live machining, and we leave it on like 24/7. So you guys know when I get here in the morning, and you guys know when my brother-in-law leaves here at night. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you guys can hold them accountable for your Keycults.
yeah, you're like, oh, you didn't meet your quota, George. Come on, man.
We saw you were 15 minutes late today. What were you doing?
You see someone sneaking in and taking a Keycult too.
Yeah, that too. Half security camera, and everyone's the security watch guards and stuff like that. Keycult, best brother.
Yeah, it's the machine's name is called KC_brother,
Okay.
and that's what Obsidian is one of our keepers, which is kind of a new thing that we're doing, which is super exciting.
So what does the keeper do?
So essentially, we realized that as we've grown busier, we haven't had a chance to be as active in the community, especially in our Discord community. And we realized that oftentimes our moderators are the face of the company for a lot of people. And we wanted for them to be compensated for doing this work that they do for us. So they have like a small monthly stipend, and they also have like sort of access to us on a regular basis. And we can like give them updates, and they can tell us things that we might be missing and things that people want and things that people don't want. So it's a sort of more formalizing the role within the company, because we want people to know that like, hey, if you get information from this person has been in contact with us and knows what they're talking about. And also they were just doing like a really killer job of like being friendly, answering questions all the time, which I know can be really taxing. And I mean, you guys stream, like you guys know what it's like to like have the same question asked like 400,000 times, and like I would rather be like, I acknowledge the effort that goes into it than have them be like, screw you, go figure it out.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, even myself, I've taken the same approach with the Twitch mods and Discord mods. Like, unfortunately, I can't give them any sort of payroll, but every few months I'll pick up something custom for them. Give me mods, some good stuff. But no, there's so much work that goes into building a community as well, which I think that's what Keycult is as well. Like when you join the Keycult Discord, you'll notice it's pretty lively. It really is. And there's a lot of work that gets put into building a community, and I think that's really cool what you guys are doing, because it's more of like official downstreamed information.
Yeah,
opposed to not.
yeah, it's sort of like and one of the things that we noticed was like we were like sort of springing things up on our mods and stuff. So it was we would make announcements. We wouldn't really think about like how like who we told and when we told, because we've always been like a 2-person company, so we haven't really had to worry about that. But now with like the keeper changes, it's like once every couple of weeks, like they sit down with us and they can ask us questions, and then we give them like updates. And a lot of times it's like pretty clerical stuff, like, hey, when are plates going to come back in stock and things like that. But sometimes it's like pretty big things that we're like, hey, we need to restructure this and make our FAQs more like easily digestible and make separate FAQs for separate things. Like those are big things that like I don't have the time to do, and B, probably wouldn't have thought of. Because I think that like we can all relate to people being like, hey, go read the FAQs, and the FAQs is like I don't know, Plato's Republic's worth of text.
Yes,
and you're like,
yeah.
and it's just as digestible, and you're just like, okay, I mean, I guess I have no idea how to find this information. So
Yeah.
Our mods have been really, really great. I should say our keepers have been really, really great in like letting us know and changing things around and making it easily found.
Yeah, and that's one thing too. Like I'm sure even Space can attest to this as well. I know me and him probably sat down one day a while ago, and we read something about how FAQs, like long-winded FAQs, can be sometimes absolutely pointless. Because where do you find the information within those long FAQs? So constantly having to revisit them and streamlining those FAQs is really important too, to answer questions that are relevant, not just maybe a question that got asked 3 months ago and never going to be brought up again.
Yeah.
So that's really cool that you guys are doing that.
Yeah.
Another question for you. So, just to not get off the topic of the keyboards, because we definitely don't want that, but you kind of showed us something before we went live.
Oh yeah,
Just a little something.
Yeah. So, for those of you who don't know, we have a very active coffee community in our Discord server, and we noticed it, and we decided that we wanted to do something cool with it. And we've had 2 rounds of what we call Keycult, and I was showing them the 3rd round of the upcoming Keycult. You guys are getting a sneak peek here. I'm really excited about this collaboration.
Let me make you bigger. 1 second.
Yeah,
Hold
so I'll just model this for as long as it needs
There
to
you
happen.
go.
So this is the 3rd iteration of Keycult, and we're working with a company called Tetrahedron Coffee. For you coffee culters, you guys know all about them because one of our most active members is sort of one of the founders of Tetrahedron, Flat White, and it's like a very small roaster in California, and we like did 7 rounds of roasting profiles and stuff, and we landed on something that we really, really liked. And yeah, it's really, really interesting because I'm learning a lot about coffee, which isn't something that like I would otherwise learn a lot about. And what I like most about like our previous Keycult iterations were with a much bigger roaster, who was like, here's what we have, and you can get it, or you can get something else. And with Tetrahedron, it was very much a let's find something we like together. And that was just like, and that's how I love doing things because it's how I learn.
Yeah.
I like people taking me on and like holding my hand and like moving myself towards it. So, huge shout out to Flat White and Tetrahedron, which you'll be hearing more about soon. And I'm super excited for you guys to get your hands on it. It's and we actually like bought I say we in the very general we that he went and bought a bag of coffee. And he's gonna kind of roast it to order, and it's gonna be really fun. So
interesting. I will have to grab some. I'm slowly getting into coffee. Chase is as well. We're pretty big noobs at it so far, I'd say, but I'm down to try it out.
Yeah,
I'd say you're getting there, Reagan. You've definitely picked up some equipment for it. I think both sides have, right?
Yeah, Yankar got us grinding our own coffee beans, which was a big step in the right direction, I feel like. That was I've noticed a pretty decent change in the quality, the taste of, especially the taste of the coffee I am drinking at this point.
Yes.
Just from grinding my own beans. It's pretty crazy.
That is gonna be the next thing I get into. Sorry, George?
Fresh ground beans make a big difference.
It's gonna be the next big thing I want to get into. When we were talking to Yankar, I said the same thing. I'm like, hey, I need to get into this. So whenever I have some time, whenever things start to die down a little bit here, I'm probably gonna pick up some equipment to start too, because everyone keeps saying the flavor's so different, and I'm like, all right, guys, like I need to try this, I guess. So you're gonna have to pick something up.
Yeah, until I like fresh ground some coffee and like really paid attention. I've always used like an espresso machine and with like an electric grinder. And I've got to say, like, I've been guilty of leaving some ground coffee in the grinder and then just scooping it out like several days later. And like, I mean, ever since, you grind it immediately and drink it, I mean, it's so noticeably different than
You're also putting so much effort into 1 cup of coffee at that point, which is it's a completely different experience. I don't know.
It is good. I like it. I gotta say, I'm happy with coffee so far, and I'm excited for the Keycult coffee.
Yeah, I will definitely be trying. Is that something that's going to be difficult? You said it's going to be made to order, so is that going to be something that's difficult to get your hands on?
Do I have to?
It's not going to be a raffle, but I do think that depending on how hype people get, it might be a little bit because we only bought 1 bag of the beans, so there's a limited amount of. Again, because he's a small roaster, like it's capital. People are just going to be like, "Oh, Keycult wants to make everything exclusive," and you guys are welcome to think that. Like, I am I'm okay to die on that cross. That's okay. But the reason why is because bags of green coffee beans is expensive, and we don't know how many we're gonna sell. So like we can't buy like 30 bags to maybe accommodate a bunch of people. So
So you're telling me I'm gonna have to go on Mech Market to get
you're gonna have to go on that market.
Someone beat me to the punch here. Someone said Keycult victory auction for the coffee.
Yeah, you're gonna have to trade your OTD for it.
Oh God. Yeah, there's gonna be bots getting coffee here, then reselling it on Mech Market.
I truly hope.
Yeah, 2023 Keycult is full-fledged coffee company. Yeah, no longer just keyboards. Yeah, 2023.
No longer just keyboards. There's a lot of like. One of the things I was going to tell you, Alex, is where you're going. Be the Kraken. So like, there's a lot of like equipment, FOMO and stuff and coffee stuff. And it's like I started the same way, like a hand grinder and like doing pour over, and then I started thinking like, well, maybe I want to do like espresso, and then like, so there's definitely a lot. And one of the nice things about sort of getting into stuff like this, like at first you're just like, I want a better cup of coffee, and then you sort of develop this like ritual that you start really enjoying. You start really enjoying like grinding your beans. You start really enjoying pulling your shot. And you start really enjoying drinking your coffee. And those are the things that like most captivate me, which is what happened with like photography and stuff, with like going out there and like taking pictures of like scenery and things like that. That's like really, really nice. So even though I haven't done as much as I would like to of the photography part, with coffee, it's been really nice to sort of develop a habit and develop a ritual behind it.
And it's funny too, you say that too, because this morning I was looking through all my old photographs when I used to take walks. I almost went on like every other day. I went like on a night walk in Toronto here, and I would take photos of the city. A lot of long exposures, a lot of nighttime photography, street photography. And I haven't done it since COVID started. So I was looking through that today, and I'm like, man, I miss this. And as much as I love taking photos of keyboards and stuff, it's different to go out there and get different styles of shots too.
Yeah.
But you were sorry, Reagan, were you saying something?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
But George, you said you're getting you haven't been into photography as much as you'd like.
Like I take like product photos and stuff like that of our keyboards. But like I sort of my first love in photography was like landscape photography.
Yes.
And I really I haven't had and I know my wife is probably listening to this, and she's like, I'm happy to go on a hike whenever the F you want, and we can go take pictures of stuff. But I just haven't been able to like go out and like, last time I went to like a park that's like DuPont State Park around here, which is like filled with waterfalls, and it was really pretty, and I got to take some like long exposures of the Cascades and stuff, and that's, I don't know, that's just that process is just like really interesting to me, because of like you're capturing like the light in the perfect moment, and you are playing with the recipe, but you're also like taking in this like beautiful scenery, which isn't, you don't really get that with like product photos, because in product photos, like you have a mental image of what you want, and then you're just like trying to get it, which is like fine, but you're also not like working with something that is much bigger than yourself. Sorry.
No, I think with product photography as well, like I did it for fitness equipment and fitness for about 3-4 years professionally, and I think after a while you kind of get, well, there's only so many ways that you can do this that, first of all, portrays the product nicely in a very sterile manner as well, because a lot of the times you want something that just focuses on the product. Usually with companies, they don't always want creative things. I know when you're running your own company, it's obviously different, but when you're doing it for other people. But it's cool. It's just like keyboards too, because I know some people enjoy the building process of keyboards, which is more my thing. I love the building process, and I love the way that it looks at the end. I know some people build strictly for, the type feel, the sound. With photography, even for myself, as much as I love going out and taking the photos, I love that. The editing process is the most fun to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not.
Like you edit too.
Yeah. I wish I had the chops that Alex has on editing. I'm not a very strong editor, especially in Photoshop, so I try to get as much in camera as possible, and that sort of comes from like landscape, where like you tend to just want to capture as you see things. And there's not that much editing going on. Or at least for some landscape photographers. Other landscape photographers are like, let's add the Milky Way onto here and it'll be like awesome. And like, I do admit that those shots are like really interesting to look at. But for me in particular, it was like, I want to capture in my camera what it felt like to be there. So yeah, and I've seen you, I saw like one of your Photoshop
Way
and
back
I was
when.
super,
Yeah.
way back when. And I was like super jealous. I was like, this guy just knows, and he thinks he's better than me.
Thinks he's better than me, that jerk. I've been using Photoshop since I was like 16 though, like 17. So I'm 29 now, so it's been a while. Like I used it when we were in high school. I did photography and developed my own film, I don't know if anyone in chat or if you guys have developed your own film. It's very much like a very rudimentary like Photoshop. You can play around with the chemicals to add contrast to certain areas, or play around with chemicals to do certain things. You can sepia tone with chemicals too, so it's very interesting.
Yeah, but you can't control Z.
You can't control Z. No, you can't do that. But you can technically just redo. You can just redo. That's it. You can do one of those.
It just takes a lot longer.
Yeah. So actually, we have a question for you from Steez. By the way, if you guys have questions, feel free and ask them. I know there was also a comment saying, when are you guys building airplanes? Because you had mentioned you were selling aircrafts. George, I know it's arbitrary when talking about niche roasters or one-off blends, but if you could have one for the rest of your life, Starbucks or Dunkin'?
I don't know. I haven't had a lot of Dunkin' Donuts coffee, so I've had a lot more Starbucks coffee than I have Dunkin' Donuts coffee. So I'd probably say Starbucks, but I know that some people swear by Dunkin'. So, while I will say this, like, while I appreciate like really good coffee, I also just like coffee. So I'll drink the medium roast drip from Starbucks, and not like be like, oh, this is terrible, and throw it out.
Yeah, for me, I have never tried Dunkin' Donuts. I don't think there's much. I think there's many Dunkin' Donuts here in Canada. I think it may be one downtown Toronto that I've seen, but I can't say I've had
America
one.
runs on Dunkin', man.
That's true. That is the slogan, I believe.
Yeah. Canada runs on Dunkin'.
Okay, so I know everyone. I don't know. Icy, are you in Canada? Everyone outside of Canada thinks that Tim Hortons is like the best coffee in Canada. It actually isn't. I think if you ask any Canadian what they prefer, it's not going to be Tim Hortons. No one in Canada actually enjoys drinking Tim Hortons. Tell you right now. And if you do, then do your thing. But I don't know. I literally cannot stand it. Worked there for 4 years. Oh no, Timmy's is gross. Yeah, I don't like Tim Hortons. Timmy's is doo doo. Yeah. Same.
Oh damn, they're Tim Hortons getting roasted now.
This stream is not brought to you by Tim Hortons.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
And if it was, then it is no longer.
Yeah. It is a convenient bucket of caffeine. It is. So while we get some more questions happening in chat here, someone actually asked, George, are you currently using a Keycult? I think I know which one you're using.
Yeah, I'm using the 165, my personal. I finally reclaimed my personal 165 build.
Oh, did you?
Yes, Zach was using this for a long time, but Zach is gone. So when Zach is away, George will type on his personal keyboard.
Go on.
Yeah, I pretty much exclusively type on Keycults because I'm usually testing things out, or
Makes sense.
Yeah, and I also don't. As a general rule of thumb, whenever I'm building a keyboard, I usually stream because I think that people want to see that. Yeah. And then I also don't stream. And I don't like streaming and building, or I won't stream and build other people's keyboards because I feel like that's a huge conflict of interest. So yeah, so basically all the keyboard we have like a bunch of keyboards that are from other people that are just unbuilt that I want to build, but I'm like testing things out. I'm testing plates, so I'm testing out like how things feel on different keyboards and things like that.
Sure. And someone asked which switches and whatnot are on your 165 right now.
People, old time viewers will know what switches.
Is it Creams?
Keycult. Yeah, Keycult is sponsored by Novel Keys. Because I really like Creams, and it's also really nice to have there's like a shill reason and there's a practical reason to why I like creams so much. I really like the sound and feel of them, and it's something that I'm used to. And B, it's also nice to have a baseline for when you try new things. So if everything you build is from creams, then you have a more apples to apples comparison between things that you're testing out.
True. Yeah. Creams are a nice switch. I always get that whole feeling of I need to break this switch in. I like the sound profile of creams, I always have, but definitely one of those things where I feel like one of the only switches where I feel like you need to use it for a month, then mod it and then put it and solder it in.
I'm really curious.
Go on, sorry.
If that's like psychosomatic, I have a feeling that that's in people's heads.
The thing is though, with blueberries, I felt the same way, and I don't know if it's something to do with the housing, the palm housing, but you can definitely hear the scratchiness. And when I first used creams, I didn't know much about them, nor did I know what I was expecting, and I definitely felt it a little bit. On my next batch, I did what everyone told me to do, and I'll be honest, it didn't really make much of a difference for the month that I used it. So I kind of just live with the scratchiness now, the tiny hint of scratchiness. But you might be right. It might just be one of those things where you might think it sounds better after a month or 2 months of breaking it in. You don't know. I don't know.
I mean, I do know that the creams do feel better when they have been broken in, because we have a friend that does like mechanical actuation on switches, and he does like 50,000 actuations on it. He essentially does like presses on it, and those creams do feel different. But I oftentimes will build my keyboards with like stock creams that have just been lubed, and I personally think that they feel fine.
Yeah.
But it's like a preference thing. I think that, and also like I think that some people have a more refined like finger palette, so they can like feel things.
Yeah, no, totally. Feels different.
And that's perfectly fine.
Yeah. And that's the big thing too. It's just like with a lot of stuff in this hobby, it's all personal preference. Have you ever wanted to make a super experimental keyboard just to mess with people on stream? A super experimental keyboard.
We've had some ideas for April Fool's stuff, which was kind of cool, and we might do something more interesting this year. But honestly, like a lot of our experimental stuff is kind of like trying to just make simple things that are good, and trying to improve upon the things that we already make. So it wouldn't really be like, if I were to sort of share with you guys the things that we're like working behind the scenes, it wouldn't be like, oh my god, they're using unicorn hair to tie the keyboard together. Like it wouldn't be like mind-blowing. It's just like, we want to make things sound different, or we want to make this easier to build, and which is kind of what preoccupies us in terms of like the R&D stuff. It kind of is mostly like, how can we make this better and easier to build?
So you're telling me there's no unicorn hair at all in the next Keycult?
No.
That's unfortunate.
Got another question from our boy Devin from Artisan Labs. He said, what is Keycult's thoughts on the resell on their boards?
Interesting question.
What are our thoughts? I don't know what our thoughts are. Like part of me is like a tiny bit grumpus about it, which is like, oh, these people don't want their keyboards. But like another part of me is like, this is their property and they can do with it as they please. And I think that I do sympathize and feel for the people who have been trying to get our stuff for a really long time and haven't, when other people get our stuff and then immediately resell it. I can see how that sucks. But I think that like, if I were to ask people, like, do you want me to spend a good portion of my time like fussing over this and trying to find, or do you want me to spend the majority of my time making more keyboards so that you have a better chance of winning? I think that most people would come to the conclusion that like, hey, don't worry too much about this, just make us more keyboards, which is kind of our solution to it. But I think that like, if I were to say I don't know, I would caution people against going into severe debt into buying any keyboard, including like a Keycult. So if you are in a position where spending $2,000+ is an arbitrary amount for you, then more power to you. However, the thing that really kind of would really break my heart a little bit is if someone goes into like credit card debt or something like that to like get one of our keyboards in the aftermarket or get one of our keyboards from us.
Yeah.
Like, do not do that. Like, do not.
That's one thing that I know, even like, APRA, Space, Chase, I think we all mention this like a million times during our streams nowadays too. And I think a lot of people in the hobby do as well. And this is for everyone in chat as well. If you cannot buy it 3 times over, then just don't buy it. It's not worth not eating for X amount of time just because you want something that won't provide you really any sort of, living sustainability. Not worth it. Definitely not worth it.
And also, like, the other side of it is where that I also get a little frustrated by is when people, like, whenever the word like worth comes up, it kind of like, and people like judge the worth of something. It kind of bothers me, and not just with our stuff, with stuff in general, because it's like worth is dependent on the person. And like for me, something that wouldn't be worth it for someone who makes like 4 times what I make is incredibly worth it. So I think that it's really presumptuous of people to like judge and berate other people for wanting to purchase something and they value their time or they value their sanity because they don't want to like enter a bunch of raffles and get lost emails, and that really sucks for them, and they just want to have the thing now.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that I think the prescribed cure for this is everyone needs to chill, maybe.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a lot of that. Everyone needs to. The thing is, like, even with a lot of other hobbies, and I know people keep bringing up we don't want keyboards to turn into X hobby with X flippers and stuff.
Flippers are always going to be a thing.
Yeah,
that you cannot control. There's a whole market for it. It's a way to make money for certain people, and like I don't know. It's always going to be a thing. But the people who pay $2,000 plus for any sort of keyboard, I mean, that's what it's worth to them. So
yeah,
I mean, they've valued it as such. They're getting happiness from it.
Yeah, and like for example, I wasn't in the hobby, more than a year and a half ago. How do I get some of that stuff that I missed out on? I have to go and spend X amount of dollars and pick up something that I want to add to my personal collection, right? Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. The aftermarket's weird, and it's also like a source of salt. And I feel, and I try really hard to not get. I think that like as a maker of stuff, I think that you have to have really thick skin, and I think that a way to erode that thick skin is to sort of like bathe yourself in the salt very often. And that's why I like very much try to avoid like things that are just like people griping and stuff. I'm just like, I'm just gonna focus on running this machine, and that's that.
Yeah, exactly. But we have a lot of other questions too. We have also what has been, I guess, the most expensive commission. I think also to add on to that, maybe what's been the most fun commission, if you can talk about them. Again, only if you can.
Yeah, I'm not gonna like. There's been a lot of. I'm not going to talk about what the most expensive commission is because I feel like that's shitty to people who are commissioning. But I think that a lot of our commissions are really fun, and they sort of force us to do cool things with our designs. And also, like, I think people are really good at colorways, and they also come up with like really interesting colorways that like once we see them in person, we're like, man, this is really cool.
Yeah.
Or this color turned out really well. But yeah, there's I think, and also every time that we get to work with like Caustic and get like custom work done for our clients, it's like a pleasure because it's like this guy does
really cool.
Yeah, that guy does things that like I can't even fathom how to do. Which is, I think that's like the coolest part of working with him. It's like, this is literally a mystery to me. Like, you might have a superpower. I don't know because I can't comprehend how this works.
He's cheating in real life.
I mean, that's so many chemicals that go into that, and it's a scary process. It's really, I mean, I would say it's truly like art. It's like being an artist with a canvas, especially the stuff that he puts out is insane. And he's kind of local to me, and I know we've chatted back and forth on just possibility of certain things, and I've seen the work he's done for you guys is also really, really cool. I'm curious to know, what is the process to get a commission from you all? Like, how does one do it, and what's the extent of what users can customize and pick out?
So commissions from us usually work. You fill out a form and then we get back to you. And then essentially people most often customize the color of things. You can customize like engravings, external or internal engravings. You can customize colors. You can customize materials within reason. So our commissions moving forward are going to be because, and some of our existing commission clients know this frustration, just like because timelines from China are so long. Some commissions we haven't, like that we took a while ago, we haven't even been able to fulfill because there's like remake times and things like that. So to avoid that, we're making commissions ourselves from now on. So yeah, essentially, like if we can machine it, then you can commission it, and then basically things get attached to price based on how hard and how long it's going to take us outside of our normal production schedule. And customizations can vary between like, oh, I want this engraving added, and it can vary between like, I want to change the typing angle of this case to X degrees and stuff like that. And depending on the complexity, like things get more expensive because for certain things we need to develop like new fixturing, which takes time, and then also takes a lot, and even more than that, it takes like a lot of time out of Zach's time to make these changes to the model and things like that. So
Yeah,
it can
anytime
get
you're
pretty
changing the
expensive.
model and software is going to be a fee.
Yeah, because things break, and then things don't really like, and then designs don't really work, and so we have to like fix things, and then what we have is, by fixturing I mean essentially how the machine holds on to the part for it to machine off stuff. So basically how we hold on to a certain part. If you make it thinner, we might not be able to hold on to it, so we might need to have a different way. Yeah.
Has there been a commission that went out the door and you kind of wish it wouldn't have gone out the door because you fell in love with the way it looked or anything like that? Like, was there one in particular that you were like, oh man, I really would like to have that for myself?
Yeah. There are a few, but there's a few that I kind of wanted to keep for myself, and there's a few that like there's a few that we've like drawn inspiration from. Like there's, I think that people, I think that like the black on black sort of victory auction stuff that never really happened, but that will happen at some point, was sort of inspired by a commission that we like sort of did some experiments with, and it looked really cool on the black on black. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of commission stuff that I'm like, damn, this like, and especially like not to harp too much on this, like the custom anodized stuff, there's some like really cool unique beautiful art that goes into it that I wanted to keep but can't.
Do you exclusively offer like ano finishes, and then obviously outside of caustic, he's more so like what the unique ano stuff that's like a little bit more complex versus like a singular flat color across the keyboard?
Yeah, so like our commission pricing that you see on our website includes single color anodizing on parts. So we also work with, like, as much as I'm going to praise caustic, I also want to praise our single color anodizer. They're called CT anodizing, or Connecticut anodizing, for those of you who are curious. I think that it's a different type of art to really be a consistent anodizer. And I think that they work, like I'm literally on the phone with them 3 to 4 times a week. And on production cycles, I'm on the phone with them every single day. And they're like, okay, we need to tweak this. We need to change the chemistry on this bath and do this so you can get this color. Or like, this is being a little bit inconsistent. Like, let's do this tweak and that tweak. And like, we've been in contact with we've spoken with chemists, we've spoken with material suppliers. Like, these guys have gone above and beyond like any expectation that I've ever had for a supplier to like make us happy. And it's been like a wild process, because it's like I've learned so much about like metallurgy. I've learned so much about like the chemical process of anodizing and how many times you can strip and re-anodize. And I've learned like, okay, what causes material to look this way versus that way. It's honestly an art and super interesting. And this guy has really, if any of you are looking for anodization projects for anything, even if it's not keyboards, if you're a manufacturer of anything, like really, really hit these people up because they will work their butts off for you.
Which is really cool. It's really cool to see that developing those professional relationships and then being proud of that person too.
Yeah, I mean, we also really I really like to sort of give credit where credit is due. I think that like it would be fine for us to like find this really great anodizer and kind of keep them to ourselves and like be like, oh, it's a trade secret who we use to anodize.
yeah,
like
there's always that factor of it.
But like I agree with Alex where it's like I'm really proud of the stuff that they did, and like I want to share it with people, and I want to share like who did this so that like, and if someone starts manufacturing stuff in the United States and wants to get a really high quality anodizer, like go to these guys, and then like quality of anodized boards in the United States will go up. So it'll be great. Everybody wins.
And I kind of find with my mentality and things too, especially sharing things that you do or what works for you, because you know that whole, you know, what works for a product works for like a streamer, what works for space cables, for his coils and whatever secrets he may have, right? I find that if you take that leap and you do share with someone and hey, everyone's starting to use that anodizer now, or everyone's starting to do that thing on stream now, it kind of pushes you to do something different. So it really does give you sometimes that kick in the ass you need to be like, okay, everyone's doing this same thing now. What can I do different? How can I break the barrier again into something new? That's always been my mentality with things, which I really think is fun. But we have so many questions, so let me ask another one. We have a question too, which I thought was very interesting. So someone before, I think it was Chocolatine, asked if you guys would do other things other than, I guess, what you've been doing, being the 65s and decals and stuff like that.
We do have some plans for that. For like 75s and 1800s compact and stuff like that. But all that stuff is sort of dependent on time because it's like all this prototyping and stuff, and Salvin can speak to this as well. It's like this takes a lot of time, and like right now we're working at like strained capacity because Zach is a new dad, and so like he has very limited time. So I think that right now most of our efforts are going towards like really nailing down our existing designs and our existing supply chain, so that things are a little bit more manageable in the long term. But yeah, like halfway through this year, maybe. What's that? Sorry, I apologize.
No, we're getting a lot of like even Alice's. You call Alice.
That's probably not, honestly, like I think that people should stop holding their breath and let the air into their lungs about the Alice layout. I don't think that that's like
sorry guys.
Yeah, it's just like we tend to design things that we use ourselves, and like I think that things that get us and we are a small company, so things that get us really, really excited are the things that tend to happen. And I'm going to give you guys an inside scoop. Alice layout does not get us really excited, at least not in 2020, early 2021. Maybe next year, maybe later this year, but right now it's not really on our radar.
Well, and you make a good point too. Like if you're not using it and you guys are designing keyboard, then how do you make it better if you're not using it every single day and not involved in that particular? Well, what makes this a little bit better? What makes this noteworthy type thing? Also, guys, I'm just gonna apologize. I think the internet's going up and down, so if it goes like lower quality for video, audio is still fine. We're still okay. Sorry, guys. Some other questions we're getting too is with the demand of Keycult, how do you prevent burnout while trying to keep up demand?
It's a great question. The answer is I don't think about burnout, and I burn the candle at both ends and worry about it when I get burned out.
Ain't that the truth?
Everyone in my life tells me that I work too much, and I recognize the fact that I work too much. But at the moment, it's sort of like it's really important for us to like make more stuff, both from like a personal standpoint and for like the business standpoint. So it's sort of I know that this is a problem, but I'll worry about it later type thing. That's a problem for future George. That guy has all of the answers.
That's my model.
Future George just sweating. He's like, oh god.
No. He doesn't. Future George doesn't sweat. Future George has simple solutions to all of the complex problems in today's George life.
Wow. I need to start thinking like Future George.
Yeah,
Future Alex.
Future
Me
Alex.
too.
Future Alex is stressing, dude. Have you guys ever done any chrome or any other metal type plated cases?
No, but it's really cool. I think chrome plating or plating in general is a cool process that I would like to explore more. But like any process, it takes a long time to do well, and our customers demand things be done well. So maybe down the line, I'll look into, like, right now we're just starting to get really comfortable with the anodizing process, and once we become like really solid with the anodizing stuff, then we'll probably start moving into more interesting things like chrome plating or cadmium plating.
Any
things like that.
Damascus avail? No? Yeah.
No, I mean, maybe Damascus avail on certain things depending on like how we evolve as a company. But the problem with Damascus steel is that like most Damascus steel is thin and it's also small.
Yeah.
So like having a billet, so like our smallest piece for the number 265 is like a 12-inch and like a 1-inch piece. So that amount of Damascus, I don't think that you can buy that right now. So we would have to have an extrusion made or like a mold made, and then it would be, not only would that be super expensive because having dies made are several $1,000s, it would also be incredibly expensive to get it. Like just the material itself is expensive, and there's usually minimum order quantities. So now you're having to buy like 2,000 pounds of this material that is already really expensive, and plus you have to get dies made. So all of a sudden Damascus steel becomes like becomes a $20,000 plus adventure, and
someone will do it eventually.
Someone will. Someone will fund it. Someone will fund it.
We'll follow in their footsteps, but at the moment, we don't have the capacity to do that.
I can't wait for that to happen.
Have you ever considered any other finishes like Cerakote or anything, or powder coat even has been done?
Yeah, so we do have a Cerakote provider. The thing with Cerakote is that it's slow. So Cerakote is like an applied finish that can't really be batched because every single board needs to be coated. Like in anodize, you hook everything up to a rack, or you hook like 10 boards up to a rack and they get batched, which makes it a lot quicker. With Cerakote, it like something that takes an anodizer 3 weeks takes a Cerakoter like 2 months to do, if they're of normal size. So for production runs, it sort of becomes a problem, but we have worked with a Cerakoter that does incredible work. And we will be working with them more this year. But I just don't know how to handle things in that quantity, because it's like it would be like, okay, we get like 30 to 40 Cerakoted boards a month, because that's their capacity.
Yeah.
So like, how do we sell those? Like, and then we also have to mitigate like people's disappointment, and like, okay, like, are we going to run a raffle for 40 keyboards and then like thousands of people are disappointed? So it's sort of weird. So it's just something that I personally need to think about. Like, how do we handle this? How do we manage people's expectations, and how do we handle their production capacity?
Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's really cool.
I would like to start seeing Cerakote as a finish option in more group buys, or just in more keyboards in general, because it's so nice.
It is really nice, but it's also really unpredictable. So like, the reason why you don't see it that much done, or the reason why you see it done once and then never again, is because people get bitten by the Cerakote dragon or the Cerakote snake, which is like you'll send one sample or 2 samples or 5 samples and they all come back great. And then you send them 24 boards, and then like half of them will have like blemishes and stuff like that. Blemishes that don't really matter in firearms is like B stock for keyboards.
So that's completely understandable, and I think more so comes down to what the Cerakote shop will pass as like their QC standards. Because we were talking to Dixie or Omnitype 2 weeks ago about this, and he was saying that like he had submitted a sample of this particular Cerakote color for I think the Bauer, and he got the sample back. It looked great, and then he asked me, like, he was like, yeah, 6 months later we got, you know, all of our keyboards in, and the finish went from this like satin kind of gloss, and all of our final boards were flat matte, completely just flat.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I was kind of explaining to him like how that worked, was that their Cerakote shop dropped the ball on that, but it's
So
it can be really good.
the thing, yes, it can be really good. It's also like really good Cerakote is really expensive. I think that people aren't prepared in production to spend that much money. So like this is getting a little weedsy, which is fine because I think that people really like the weeds of the keyboard hobby. But like, I think that people are expecting to like pay like for their whole entire kit, like especially in productions, like you're looking to pay like less than, pick an arbitrary number, let's say like less than $100 per kit, like for finishing, which is a lot of money. And then you go to a Cerakoter and then you're like, and they're like, yeah, we can do that. And then they send it back to you. And then you're like, well, actually these blemishes are a problem for me. And then they send it, and then you send it back to them. And then it needs to be stripped and then recoated, which is a very time consuming process. And then this is something that like my Cerakoter was like explained to me. It's like, I have to like, on average, I strip 1 out of every 10 guns that I do. On your keyboards, I'm stripping like 1 out of every 3 keyboards that I'm doing. So it's like, your fail rate is way higher than what we're used to doing, and like your keyboards are also taking a ton more Cerakote, so I need to charge you like 3 times what you want to pay for this. So it's just kind of like, can get really good quality Cerakote in production volumes, but you're just going to pay a lot more money for it, which is fine ultimately, but that's just an expectation that needs to be set.
Have you tried multiple like shops, or I mean, because like a 1 in 3 fail rate is like horrendous.
Also, to preface this, I don't know if you know this, George, but Reagan, or Mr. Space Cables here, is Cerakote. So he's been to Cerakote training and has started Cerakoting over the last couple of months.
This is,
so that's why he's very interested. He's very interested.
Finding a Cerakoter on live on stream. Do you want to Cerakote keyboards?
He's very interested in what Cerakote has to do, like the role Cerakote is going to play in the future of this community. Because I can tell Reagan is very
I was talking
interested
directly to Cerakote about this,
Yeah. I know Reagan's very interested in the Cerakote coding itself.
Yeah. I mean, so like one of the things... Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Reagan.
I was just going to say that you brought up a really good point in that your Cerakote shop says that they fail 1 in 10 guns in the 1 in 3 keyboards, and it's because when they're used to the guns, maybe they don't have to be as particular in the corner, and they're not focusing on, you know, the overall quality. They're focusing on like the chemical aspects of Cerakote, you know, they're meeting durability and corrosive protection and all that, but not so much majoring on the aesthetic part, which keyboards that use Cerakote don't really need like the corrosive
That's what
protection.
you think.
So, I don't know what's going on your desk, but yeah. So I guess if you just kind of, what's that?
He's taking his Keycult to Jupiter. He needs that corrosion resistance.
If I don't know, like I would like to at some point start offering it as like I want to like major in obviously like our own connectors and keyboards and stuff like that we produce, but like I would like to like eventually at some point become like the plug and specializing in keyboards and like have our own standards of QC and stuff. So I think it would be cool to start seeing it more and more in the community as having Cerakote finishes. There's so many colors, you know.
Yeah, I would love to. Honestly, like when we first started machining, like finishing was this really big black hole of time and effort that we just couldn't figure out. And one of the things that like we started doing was just like I started being like, okay, Cerakote is the solution, because it's like there's Cerakote shops take you more seriously, like they answer the phone, and then I think I've sent our stuff to like over a dozen Cerakote shops. Like I'm and big and small, like huge operations to like people working out of their garage.
Yeah.
So like, and what you're describing would be amazing, and like I think that Cerakote does have really huge potential in keyboards, but I think that like it's just a different geometry that I think catches a lot of Cerakoters off guard. It's like because keyboards are large flat expanses where like guns aren't. So like if there's like, if you don't have good filtration and like a piece of dust or a fly or something lands on your Cerakote before it dries, there'll be like a little speck. And with paint, I know a little bit about this because I used to work in aviation, and with paint you can buff it out, but with Cerakote you can't do that. So it becomes, there's just a lot of like little things that people just aren't used to, and you're completely right that they're just used to something different. And I think that having a Cerakote shop that is like, we are aesthetic and we are like super focused on the small little details, and like we have a more sterile environment so that when we move your gun to the spray booth to the oven, there's not like a bunch of little dust particles that are going to stick to the wet coat, which is an issue. So all this stuff, and the thing is like all this also requires like a big investment. Like, am I like, and like a Cerakote, it's going to be like, hey, sure, I'll like invest in like a walk-in oven, and then like I'll invest in like these like filtration systems, but like I don't know if you're going to send me like 3 keyboards or if you're going to send me like 600 keyboards. Like,
I guess it depends. Yeah. But you're saying like 40 keyboards turnaround time in a month that's like crazy to me, because I know, like, first of all, it's coming in I'm assuming raw aluminum form. So there's little to no.
Well, you need a blast. And this guy also like does a lot of guns, and he's like, this is what I can fit in and not like hurt my gun stuff, which is
okay. So that's
the bread and butter. Yeah, the bread and butter of a lot of Cerakote people, it's like firearms. So this guy isn't going to like drop his good business for this like weird keyboard stuff.
Yeah, I mean, well, what you are though is what Cerakote shops, and this I'm speaking from because I used to go to a Cerakote shop and then sort of just cut it out. But like what you are to them is an account versus Joe who walks in with a gun and is never going to come back after the gun does. So like I know that these Cerakote shops do favor like the kind of residual accounts that are revolving and, you know, maintaining those relationships. But yeah.
I mean, I'm looking forward to doing. I mean, we are going to do more Cerakote stuff. Like I was actually taking pictures today of a Cerakote board that we have. So we are going to be doing more. And the pictures that we posted of a 265 on Instagram a few months ago was a Cerakoted board. Oh, okay. And so we're going to be doing more Cerakote in general. But there's just limited bandwidth on my end, essentially.
I'm gonna fit in a few more questions, guys. Teja wants to know when the brick and mortar store is coming. I don't know if that's even possible right now.
As soon as Rona goes away, people can start coming to our brick and mortar shop. But I don't think that our business model really makes sense for retail. It would just be an empty store all the time.
Where you can
go in and manually enter the raffle there. Like,
yeah.
Like a ballot. You put a ballot into a box.
That's the only way to know that there are no bots, is like people have to physically come to our store and put a token into a box.
No, and they'll start hiring people to do that. They'll be the bots.
Yeah.
Give you
I'll
$5.
Put in $2, man.
Yeah.
As soon as you turn around, I'll put in $2.
You just see someone's mom come in, like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Just puts in a little ballot, doing it for little Johnny.
Yeah. It would be really cool to do. I don't know. I have all kinds of like grandiose visions of like, it would be cool like if we ever like became a company that could like afford to buy like a space or something to have like a front lobby that just like our customers could like come out and like hang out or like work in, and like they could like, you know, hypothetically like bring their laptops and like do work and like rent out a Keycult, not rent out, but like we could like loan them one so they could like hang out and like type on it and stuff like that. Like that kind of stuff like really appeals to me, because it's like I'm a person that like really likes it when people can like touch and feel stuff. But there's like a logistical issue, like we can't afford to buy a place and have like that much space just be not useful.
Throwaway space.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, Drew. Someone just had the best idea. Keycult Cafe.
Keycult Cafe. Yeah.
That's a really good idea.
That would be a cool idea.
Yeah.
It'd be cool. I also no one can steal this. Everyone here, this is a verbal trademark. I have wanted to start, or Zach and I have wanted to start a bar, and we're gonna call it the Space Bar, and that's sort of what we were thinking of. Like, okay, it'll be like the Space Bar in the front, and then the Keycult stuff in the back. but no one can steal spacebar. That is our, especially you, Space Cables. I know that you're far away.
I can't even do this. Someone took the Space 65, and now you're taking spacebar.
You can't take spacebar.
All right.
Yeah, you're think of a new name, Space Cables.
Yeah, this is a non-compete agreement on everyone in this stream and in chat. You can't form spacebar.
I'm just dropping to cables.
Just cables.
Let's see where my SEO goes.
You know that emoji where it's like that guy just like this? That's gonna be your new name, your new company name. Keycult Speakeasy. Oh god, that'd be very interesting.
Get a password to get in.
Yeah.
To be able to type a certain words per minute.
Well, I wouldn't get in then.
Oh, you're screwed.
I wouldn't get in.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to get in either. Not into my own bar.
Can you imagine? And we had a lot of questions. Like I think I saw like 5 people ask this. Do you guys plan on doing anything more of like entry level from a Keycult perspective for the keyboards? Because we've seen people like Rama do it. We've seen a lot of people do it. Novel Keys, the Portico. We've seen KBD fans. Space is kind of doing it too with the acrylic boards. So
yeah. It depends on what you mean by entry. I think that we're really into metal. So I think that for the foreseeable future, we're probably not going to venture into things like injection molding and stuff like that. So anything that we do will probably be a machine case. And
Sure.
And we definitely do think a lot about like what does a more affordable entry level Keycult goes. And I think that working in this hobby sort of makes you lose all sense of definition when you say like entry level or cheap, because it's like people are like, oh man, this board is so cheap, it's only $250.
Well, today during the stream, we were talking about the price of the board that I built today, and it ended up being I think around $340, and everyone's like, that's a really good price. And I had to like take a step back after stream. I'm like, is that actually like, is that like the norm now?
Yeah. So given the context of like, machine things are just generally more expensive, and especially like created in batches, we are thinking about like, how do we make a keyboard that is more entry that we are really excited about and really happy with? And we do have a concept that we're like really pumped about, but we're like starting to think more about. But like, I think that planning is a strong word because it implies a very generous level of competency in our ability to put things out in a timely manner. Cough number 3, cough. So take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, I know a lot of people that just want to be able to interact with your products at this point. Like I know a lot of people that bought wrist rests from you just because they're like, this is an opportunity for me to get something Keycult. Like, and I think there's a lot of people that are like that.
Yeah. I sincerely appreciate that. And I'm honestly like super flattered for people who like do that. I truly am. And it's something that I think about a lot. It's like, I really want people to experience in some way, which is why we do other things like Coffee Cult and things like that. Because it's like, I do think that like the primary way that people interact with our brand is like, hey, you can't get this thing. And I don't think that that's like a super awesome thing. So like we do other things like apparel so people can like interact with our brand that way. We do things like Coffee Cult so people can interact with our brand that way. And the thing with an entry-level board is like, the thing that I'm really afraid of, just like, I guess I'm just pouring my soul out to you guys, is that like we're going to do something that's like a less expensive board, and then it's because of our constraints, it's still going to be hard to get. And that's sort of like why I couch all of my statements in this like have realistic expectations of us, because it's like we are never going to be a mass produced thing because of the way we produce things, because it's like we have intentionally put ourselves as a bottleneck between us and our customer, and that is by its design not a scalable solution. So like I do think that we're probably going to have a board that is less expensive and maybe has the ability to have like maybe a little less QC stringency so that we can produce more of them. But we still want to make them ourselves, and we still want to like interact with the making of it and stuff. And so like that just kind of doesn't lead itself well to me being like, next month, you guys, we're gonna drop 3,000 entry keyboards.
Yeah,
because that's just never gonna happen.
Which I think it's interesting that you say that too, because coming from the headphone world before keyboards, boutique headphones are still very much a big thing, and the headphone hobby is, I'd like to say probably larger than not hobby per se, but people wearing headphones and buying headphones. Like we all have headphones on today. And I'm sure we've looked into audio at least one time in our life. I don't really think a lot of people look into the custom keyboards, but maybe people look into higher end audio. But boutique audio is still a very, very big thing. And, I know a lot of makers in the audio world who make, even some of them make one-off products, or some of them maybe only get to release 4 or 5 headphones a month. That's all they can do. And that's like, they're the ones making it. So it's definitely, I can't really say that it would be easy to make entry level stuff, and then like you said, create this mass quantity of it, especially when you are still doing it by yourselves and making sure that you guys have hands on the products and stuff like that too. But it'd be definitely interesting to see what you guys come up with for sure.
Hopefully everyone likes it and doesn't hate it, but it's still kind of a ways away. So
yeah,
forget I said anything.
Yeah, forget that happened, guys. You guys, erase your memories right now. That's it.
That was from future George.
That was future George talking. Yeah, that'll happen one day. I think that's great. There's always going to be this level of expectation with Keycult quality. I think so too. So I actually wanted to ask one question before we get too deep into, I guess, the second hour, or going into the second hour of our podcast here. But one question we always ask everyone is, I guess, how do I normally word this? I say this every time, and now I can't remember this today. What are your current thoughts? Some good notes about the keyboard hobby, and maybe what's some stuff that you would like to see change?
So things that I really like about the hobby is how collaborative it is, and how not like I don't often, and this can be misconstrued, and I mean it in the positive way. Like I don't often feel like we're in competition with other people. Not that we're like, oh, we're so far ahead of people that we don't compete with anyone. But like it kind of feels that like everyone has this really collaborative mentality, and you can reach out to like other vendors and be like, hey, this is an idea that I have and I want to work with you with it, and they'll like work with you with it.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of like, I think the mentality, especially among creators in the hobby, is that like a rising tide lifts all boats, and that we're all working towards rising the tide. Yep. And I really love that. And I hope that doesn't change anytime soon.
Yeah, agreed.
Things that I'm not super pumped about is, I guess it's like probably the amount of, this is hard to, because it's like I also like to think about like how I can change things that I don't like, and I think exactly. So like I think that the thing that that sort of gets me the most is when people are like pretend to know what goes into things when they don't. Yeah. And are like, oh, this is overpriced or blah blah blah. And like overpriced is obviously what we deal with the most, because like we're an expensive brand, and like people often think that our stuff is overpriced. But I think that people forget that they tend to like, this is like a phenomenon in economics. It's like people overvalue the work that they do, but undervalue the work that others do. And I think that like, and I think that that's why I tell people like, to be sort of a maker in this hobby, you have to have like a really thick skin, because if it gets to you that people say like your stuff isn't worth it or your stuff isn't that good, you're just not going to last very long. And I think that just people would sort of couch their opinions of like whether something is quote unquote worth it in more like uncertain terms. Just like allow yourself to be maybe wrong about whether something is worth it, or like, oh, maybe your cousin does do this thing, but maybe that his process is different than our process, and maybe our process is a little more expensive. So I think that that's sort of, there's a lot of like couch experts of stuff.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that, because it's something that I brought up too, and you kind of elaborated, I guess, more on the maker side of things, which I think is fantastic. Because even from the artist side of things, because obviously what you're doing is art and what everyone else is too, there's your labor to account for, right? Like what time you spent into R&D and all that other stuff too. I think a lot of people kind of forget that, because I've been seeing a lot of this happen lately too, where it's like they'll calculate the price of aluminum and then the machining time maybe and the electricity you used, and like this should only cost X amount of dollars. But I think as anyone, as like an artist, yeah. What was that again?
Artists shouldn't get paid, isn't that right?
That's what there's been like this floating thing that I've been hearing in like the back end of some places saying that artists don't really deserve to get paid, which is, or shouldn't get paid, not don't deserve rather.
Whoever says that is the worst.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just say that like straight up. If you think that people who make art, and let me couch this by saying like we're not artists, like we are like in the making of stuff thing. But like if you think that like an artist shouldn't get paid for their work and talent, then like,
well, I think anyone who's designing something, right? Like if you design something and you spend some time doing something, yeah, designers, artists.
Word.
There's also that level of, hey guys, like if you as someone who I take a look at a lot of keyboards, and I'm very grateful for that. And there's some keyboards that come in that are more expensive than others, right? I'm not looking at the price of aluminum and stuff. What I'm looking really at, from my end is, well, this $500 product versus this $500 product, or this $300 product versus this $300 product. Now, one $300 product could be overvalued, because maybe the creator feels like they should be paid more for their design of their art, which I totally respect, and I feel like you should be able to set your own prices. Doesn't mean people are going to buy it or people won't buy it, but I just feel like it's a weird thing to get at when you see something and it's like, well, this should be priced at the cost of the aluminum, or the cost of the material using it, right? And the energy put into it.
Cost of entry to produce those things.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I know I'm saying like a very broad thing, because there's some people obviously who maybe overprice something, and I get it. It might be a little bit weird sometimes, but there's also that too. People need to eat. People need to get paid for their work and hard efforts as well. So it's been a weird thing that I've been seeing, that the artists and designers shouldn't get paid, and this should only be this cost because the factory sells it for this amount of money.
I'm glad I'm not around the people who are saying those things.
Yeah.
This came up like a few weeks ago, and like one of sort of like I went through all of the stages of like denial, I guess, and like I sort of landed at the end that like I feel like, and I say we as in like Keycult, like I feel like it's also on us a little bit to sort of explain what goes into our product and why we feel like it's worth what it's worth, and that's something that we personally don't do very well. And this isn't to say that I'm saying like, oh, we can convince the people who think our stuff is too expensive that it's not, and let me just talk to you guys, please. Like, no, I do recognize the fact that like it's not really my job to convince people who are extremely skeptical of our process that like it's worth it. That's not my job. But I do think that we can do a better job of sort of explaining what goes on in the making and making that more accessible. And I do think that like sort of like closing yourself and being like, oh, these people just don't get it, or these people are haters, or these people are blank, sort of takes away the opportunity that you can have to like just do a better job of taking people along, and not just being transparent. It's just also like tell a story, like tell the story about your product, and do that like constantly and often. And I think that more people are being like, oh, I get it because I've been told the story. And a lot of people are like, oh, I don't get it because like this is like a black box. Like you guys like disappear for a month and then like come back. It's like, oh, here's our keyboard. And that's that's go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, who does a good job of that is Salvin. He
absolutely
does a great job of that on Instagram stories, especially.
Yeah, I think that Salvin does a really good job of like showing, and that's sort of why he like. I think that's sort of why he's known, and why sort of he deserved the notoriety that he has, is because he often takes you along in the process, and like and even not just as like a consumer, but like if you are a collaborator with him, he is so open and willing to tell you what he does, and like for example, like when we were thinking about buying a machine, like Salvin was one of the main people that we spoke to about buying the machine, and like you you can see how someone less open and collaborative would be like, no, I'm not going to show you how to open your own keyboard shop, dude. That's like how I make my money. And this guy was like, no, you guys should definitely do this. Like, this is something that you guys can do. Just do it. Like, we were about to get off the fence until we spoke with Salvin, and he like was like, you guys can definitely do this. Let's talk again in 2 weeks, and I'm going to show you how I program your thing on, like, I'm going to screen share the process so that you guys can see that it's not that intimidating and that you guys can do it. Like, that's amazing to me. Like, who does that stuff? And that's why I like give him so much credit, and that's why he's such a big part of like Keycult, is because he's just been a level of collaborative that like I've never seen before.
Yeah, I love Salvin. He is awesome. He has helped me out with a bunch of stuff too, and he's extremely open on and off camera. Always willing to help.
Well, and I think that goes back to what I said originally too, where it's like, you can't, obviously there's stuff you might want to keep a trade secret. I get it. But if you're willing to be open about some things, it kind of does put pressure on you. You're putting the own like me, especially as someone who does content creation and stuff like that. And I can imagine this applies to a lot of different things as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if you put pressure on yourself to be open about something you do, and now everyone else is going, well, okay, that opens my eyes, I want to do the exact same thing. It puts pressure on you to do something even better. And I've always been a firm believer in that. So for example, when I'm streaming and showing people how to edit photos, and everyone's editing photos with the particular method I'm showing them, it makes me go, well, how can I now up the bar? How can I raise that bar to be like, well, now this is what I'm doing. You guys were doing the last thing I was doing. Now let me show you this, so I can continually raise the bar. But I don't know. Salvin's you guys can clip this, by the way. Salvin, if you're I don't know if you're watching, someone can clip it.
I hope he's not watching, because
you're the king of schmucks. Like, I love you, buddy.
We love you,
King of schmucks. He'll get it. It depends on what difficulty. Yeah, totally, Glarsh. It depends on what difficulty of what you're doing and Spirit takes in place. Yeah, I agree. Like, obviously, there's going to be something that you obviously don't want to share. There's always going to be something you don't want to share. It's trade secret. But if there's something you're open with, a lot of the times you can put that pressure on yourself. It's self-development at that point there.
Yeah. I also feel like, I don't know, maybe this is really naive of me, and like, but I also feel that, like, for example, like, people won't be able to make a Keycult just because they know where the anodizer is.
Yeah.
Like, and like people, and even if they had like a machine shop, like, it's not like, oh, if they knew our, like, if they had our CAD files, we'd be screwed. I think that like so much of what goes, and this goes for like so many makers, it's like you like so much of what like who Rama is like sort of the design language and the work that he's put into like his keyboards, and so much of what like Omnitype is like so much of what he's put into his like key sets and like his and the Bower and stuff like that, and like and you can go on and on with like all of the other like keyboard vendors, and like so much of like who Wilba is like the level of quality in his PCBs and stuff like that. So like and I don't think that there's like a single thing that I don't think there's like a secret sauce to that, because I think that what what makes the sauce good is obvious, and it's like attention to detail, caring about the final product.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. I agree with that too. With Mr. Bullet said, knowledge has never been an acceptable substitution for passion. Yeah, and I think that kind of loops back to the conversation we were having earlier about showing people what your product's worth. Is you're showing people you're passionate at the same time too. If you can show people you're really passionate about something, I think that strikes a different chord with people too. Wilba said he's the biggest schmuck. That's not what Salvin says. Salvin says he's the biggest schmuck. I don't know, Wilba. We're all schmucks according to Salvin, but Salvin said he's the king of schmucks. I have to take it up with Salvin, I guess.
I just want to let it be known that I'm completely lost in this schmuck conversation.
He calls everyone a schmuck, so.
Oh, okay. Well,
we're all schmucks.
It's a term of endearment.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing, by the way. That's why he's the king.
Yeah.
I taught Salvin. A lot of schmucks around here. Oh, God. But we're hitting our hour and a half. Well, we already passed the hour and a half mark. Never mind. Did you guys have any last questions for Mr. George?
I hope that this has been a little bit entertaining. And I apologize if it hasn't. I will take all of the credit and all of the blame will go to Alex if this wasn't entertaining.
Thanks. I mean, that's what usually happens anyways. So.
I have a quick question. George, if somehow within the next year things somehow manage to fix themselves and the world or the United States at least is able to reopen up and the world around it, would Keycult make a plan to be visiting KeyCon and things of that nature as well?
Yeah. We did a couple of conventions in 2019, but we were, much smaller back then. So yeah, it would be really cool to do conventions this, maybe not 2020, but definitely 2021. Once, everyone is vaccinated and we can get on a plane without being worried. It'd be really cool to go to KeyCon, and it'd be really cool to also have local meetups, and we have a brewery right down the street. It'd be cool to do the local meetup at the brewery and then come grill some hot dogs here or something like that. That'd be really cool.
I don't even know when this stuff's ending. I can't even get into the States, so it's you guys have fun, I guess.
I might. Okay, I will couch everything that I say. Sorry, I'm reading chat now, and I do recognize now that 2020 is over. However, I'm a little bit tired. I got I wake up at 5 a.m. to be here early at the shop. So you gotta give me some slack. So I
was not gonna call you out on that.
My brain still thinks we're in 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're in 2022.
Okay, you know what I meant, Reagan.
He meant 2020 as well.
2020, comma 2020, comma 2, Reagan, comma. The comma is important. I didn't pause. I know. My bad.
So I guess I have a question for Alex and for everyone really. Do you guys have anything that you're just how has no one done this yet? Because you guys see way more keyboards than I do. And I'm as a person who makes things, I'm really curious, just what am I missing? And I feel we often makers oftentimes are in this echo chamber, and just nice to know what other people think.
The big thing that I've talked about this a few times, not really on stream, but one of the things that would be really cool to see is a base. This is probably a long-winded story. I'll try to make it as short as possible, but a base keyboard, a frame that has all this modularity that you don't have to constantly take apart, the core of the PCB. And it has modularity that if you want to upgrade it, the frame's always available, let's just say. And then that person can create some sort of modularity to it. For example, if you don't like the weight one day, or you don't like the back piece, you want to change up maybe the top frame or something about it that's modular. I think that'd be really cool to see some modularity in keyboards. That's a hot swap part. I'm thinking, but I don't know the actual solution or the actual product. But that'd be really kind of cool to see.
Actually, Rob Shred, I have been down that rabbit hole on using automotive paint on keyboards, and that's something that I'm actively working on to figure out. It's really cool. So basically, there's a lot of really, really great, especially not so much automotive paint. So I have some experience with aviation paint, and I've been doing some experimenting with painting of the keyboards and stuff like that, which is kind of similar to what Space is doing with Cerakote, but it's a little bit more forgiving, and it's also something that it's a process that you can buff, which can fix a lot of small issues with dust and stuff settling. So in that sense, you also have issues with tolerances and stuff, because you can do overspraying and then things don't fit together very well. But yeah, that's definitely
sorry, do you know what the thickness is of automotive paint by standard, or
I'm not 100% sure. I don't think that there's a standard. I can't off the top of my head. I did read something because I was looking into a paint called All Grip, AWL Grip, And I did do some research, and the tolerances are hypothetically within the tolerances of our keyboards. Especially like we have some room in the mid piece that we can like let things in or bring things in to make it just be less snug. So we could make it work, but we had issues with it, like because it's a human process.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious to see that too, because like when you have metal pieces that are both painted touching, how that would work, because like the thickness and like chipping and stuff like that, like I wanted to see, like, because you think about it as like a car, there's nowhere where paint is touching paint, it's all just the surface area. And you know, you're obviously having to spray like an entire middle piece, which is going to have to sandwich into a top piece.
I think that if anything that like that happens, it would have to be with the caveat that people would have to be okay with like a slight amount of like rubbing and stuff on the internal pieces, and like as long as the outside remains pristine. But like anything that if you're sliding paint together, you're gonna get like scratching and chipping.
It is what it is. Yeah, that goes with anything. I mean,
even with like
included.
anodizing. Yeah,
Ano, Cerakote, anything. I think that shouldn't be like a factor of a stock consideration. Like, oh, now it is not a stock because of the
some internal blemish. Yeah,
right.
That's not something that we do right now. Like internal blemishes don't count against the board. I mean,
okay.
If like you drop the board and there's a huge dent in the part, we're not going to sell that part. But like if there's like a spec or something like that, an internal part that doesn't count towards the B stock of the board.
Another question we got here is, George, are you sick of lubing creams yet?
No, I can't lube it up. Like my jar of creams is running low.
Oh no, that needs to be refilled. Another person asked, letter after A asked, where do you see yourself in the community not after 5 years, in 5 years?
Where do I see myself in the community? That's a good question. I don't know. I think that like we are such a different company now than when we started that like I assume that we'll be a very different company when in 5 years. Like right now, I really want to focus on machining in-house and also like doing things with automation. Like I'm really interested in having like a robot load parts in the machine, and I'm really interested in having a mechanical process that helps polish the parts and stuff like that. So polish, I mean like after it's done machining, removing the machining marks, which as if people saw the Insta story, I do that by hand right now. Having a machine that does that mechanically, like by itself, I think that that's the stuff that really gets us excited at the moment. Like we want to get like a robot, we want to get like a finisher, we want to get another machine, things like that. But like in 5 years, that's more than twice the amount of time that we've already been a company. So I assume that like we'll be just a very different company,
which is interesting. Yeah. You guys plan on, or maybe do you want to ever explore different things than what you guys are working on now?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be really cool to do. I think that there's potential. I think that we're probably not going to always just be a keyboard company. I think that and I've always been sort of interested in like both other things that are on your desk, and like I've also have like I personally really enjoy and like woodworking, and would be really cool to even like make the desk ourselves.
Keycult desk
would be, yeah, I think that it'd be cool to do something like everything on your desk is made by us. I also think that like some things that we don't do right now that are pretty obvious, which is like we don't do like keycaps, and it would be nice to have like a set of keycaps that we like and can like, okay, this is something that you can get from us that we personally really like switches, like that's not something that we offer. I don't think that we're ever going to be like, I think that the market of like having vendors that offer a lot of variety of things is already sort of cornered. And I think that like Novel Keys and OmniType do a really good job of like offering people something fresh and new. But I think that like where we see ourselves is more of like, this is curated to what we like. And if you like it as well, you can come to us and just get the thing that we have curated. And so sort of that is sort of the obvious sort of things that we don't do at the moment that we can probably do long term it'd be really cool to make like coffee stuff, but I have no expertise in that.
I was actually gonna ask, do you guys see you guys making the equipment for coffee? But that'd be
Yeah,
really
I mean, but
interesting.
I think that like the thing of when we first got the machine, I was like, maybe we can like make a hand grinder would be really cool, because I have some ideas there of like things that we can do to like do like some hand grinder but there's also like a lot of stuff, and I can definitely see ourselves like falling in the rabbit hole of like, okay, we'll make the enclosure and we'll buy the burrs ourselves, or we'll buy the burrs and make the enclosure and like put everything together and just make sure that our enclosure is like really well machined for these particular like conical burrs or something. But then like I can see ourselves quickly going into like, let's make the burrs too. So it's definitely like there's a lot of really cool stuff that I'm like definitely interested in. But I'm also not like a designer, so it's hard for me to be like, yeah, we're definitely going to do this, but hey, Zach, can you like design this for me? These are the ideas that I have. So yeah.
Be cool. It'd be definitely cool to see if you guys what you guys come up with in the next 5 years. So that was I guess the not so much a long answer, but that was the answer for their letter. Last question we'll take, and then we're gonna call it a day here because we don't want to pass our 2-hour mark. I can't find it now. I had it, but then I scrolled down a little bit and it's got lost. It was something about, do you guys prefer peanut butter, jelly, or Nutella?
That's such a like,
or a combination of the two. What do you guys think? What do you guys prefer, chat?
I think Nutella.
Nutella is the right answer for me, anyway.
I'm also like on a diet, so like I my heart says Nutella, but my brain is like, you can't have Nutella. So
okay, imagine you weren't though. Like, if you were presented one as Nutella.
By the way, cheat code: like grab some saltines and dip the saltine in the Nutella. It's like creamy from the Nutella, crunchy from the saltine, sweet from the Nutella, salty from the saltine.
Well, salt and chocolate goes really well together.
Yeah, it's really Nutella and saltines are peak culinary experience.
Now, if you had to choose peanut butter, would it be crunchy or creamy?
Creamy.
I like how that look was like, no, I wouldn't choose crunchy.
You're an idiot for choosing crunchy.
All right, then I won't tell you what I would choose. I'll end it there.
So to conclude things, we learned a lot today, I think. Hopefully, well, I did. I don't know about you guys. Hopefully you guys learned a lot too. I'm pointing at chat like they can see it, but hopefully you guys learned a whole bunch today. I think we had some very interesting conversation. That's what this is about, by the way, guys. It's about conversations, about learning new things. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys tune in for some more. Thank you for everyone who subbed today and provided support. Blue, Max, Frozen, I'm Raptors, Charlie. Thank you to George for stopping by and entertaining us for 2 hours.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. And thank you to Space and Chase. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
We're gonna end it off here. Let's see who we can raid. I always forget to raid every single time after Keycast, so maybe this time here I will not forget. I'm gonna stop the music though. Maybe this time here I will. Oh, always don't mute myself. Let us see who is. Let's raid Katana. He's always fun to do these things with.
Good guy.
Yeah, he is a good guy. All right, guys. If you guys want to, you can check out Keycult's website. You can just type in Keycult, and then you can join their Discord. Actually, that's where you're gonna find some more of that coffee. Where would you say the coffee information would drop first? Would it be the Discord?
Yeah, it would be the Discord.
Okay.
So I think the Discord. First of all, let Katana know that Jorge dice. I don't know why I give myself an English accent, but copy what I said and put it on Katana's site when you raid. And if you want to have a first sneak peek at any of our stuff, Discord is the way to do it. That's definitely the best way to keep in touch with us.
That's my Discord, guys, but I'll post a link in my news section if you guys want to join their Discord. Okay, so I'll make sure to do that right after we're done stream. All right, everyone, have a good one. We're gonna raid Katana now. Take care. Thank you guys so much for stopping by, and peace out.